Welcome back, my friend. Today I want to talk to you about an often discussed topic in gacha games, but one that is important nonetheless, and that is this game free-to-play friendly, or do you need to be a whale to truly enjoy everything that it has to offer? With that, I want to talk about it from a few different perspectives because this game is reaching out not just to your typical gacha fan, but it's also reaching out to people that are just fans of Persona and the Persona franchise in general, who have maybe never played a gacha game. Now, those of you that are familiar with the whole kind of gacha way of setting things up and having banners and materials to grind and kind of the long kind of game that they play, a lot of this is going to be very familiar, of course, but all the same, I want to get you involved and let you know where you may need to spend money or want to spend money. I shouldn't say need, but where you would look to spend money and what kind of benefits it gives you. So with that, if you wouldn't mind a like and a sub as we get started, let's kick things off right away. And so the first part I want to talk about is, what if you're coming here, you're not a gacha veteran like many of us are, and you just like Persona and you're saying, you know what, I'm waiting for, P4R to come out, or I'm waiting for, Persona 6 to come out, and I want this to scratch that itch in between. Can I enjoy this game, even though it's gacha, if I don't want to spend a ton of money? So thankfully, I'll keep this one short. The answer is yes. There is so much to do in this game that doesn't cost you a cent. And let me walk you through a few things here. You've probably seen some of it in my other videos, but first of all, if I just go to this metaverse, this is effectively where basically all of your game modes are, short of talking to confidants. All of this is free. That means that all of your palaces, your main story, which is effectively the palaces, your main story, the palaces, mementos, all the things that give you that continuing narrative, not a dime. You don't have to spend a dime to get into it. The added modes, Velvet Trials. Velvet Trials are where you battle progressively harder stages with certain types of team comps. The content that recycles every content cycle, things like the SOS trials, which is again more of a kind of scoring system type mode, or guild trials, or Astro Globe, or whatever they call this mode when it comes to global. These all are free, and you don't have to worry about being gated out of any of this because you don't necessarily want to spend money. And most of these modes are really just to give you added materials, added pulls, or to give you a little bit of a challenge in between the big story beats that get released for the palaces on the bigger content cycles. So you don't even necessarily have to do them if all you care about is just seeing the new story, maybe doing confidants, things like that. So again, you don't have to worry about missing out on any of the key core content because you didn't spend money. The other thing that's completely free in this game is the confidants. So you don't have to pull a specific character to unlock their confidant. Now, for the main party, that you get through palaces and things like that, like a traditional Persona, you do have to get through a certain part of the story to unlock their conversations. But that's the same as if you played, Persona 5 or one of the other Persona franchise games. But you're not, needing to spend $10 to guarantee a pull, and that's how you get to talk to, one of these characters down here. You can rank through their entire, confidant arc, if you will, again, just by playing the game, not spending a single dime. As I look over my notes over here, there's also other things like the, My Palace, which from what I'm hearing in an interview, it sounds like My Palace will actually come at the start of Global, which is kind of neat. My Palace, if you're familiar with Persona 5, it's basically like a hangout, if you will. And again, it's something that you're going to rank up over the course of time by adding things to it. Like you can kind of see my gallery here. I've got some things set out, and long story short, you progressively get more from it, but again, doesn't cost a dime. And I think you're seeing the theme here, right? So there's a lot that you're going to get just for logging in, just for playing the game, and you're not going to be gated behind it. And so for those of you who are not necessarily here for the gacha, maybe you don't, enjoy the character pull chasing and things like that, perfectly fine. You can play the game, you can enjoy the game. And you might be saying, but what happens if I get to, a certain palace boss and I haven't been pulling on all these, quote unquote meta units? What am I going to do? Can I beat them? They actually have a cool feature where if you lose to the palace boss, you can drop the difficulty down to allow yourself to get through it if you're just truly roadblocking yourself. That said, I'll tell you the first few palace bosses really aren't hard and you can absolutely beat them with the teams that they give you. So you don't have to, have a Joker or a Queen or Futaba or, whatever the next meta unit is at that time frame. I think Palace 4 final boss was probably the first one that I looked at, and I just haven't really seen many people clear with just the story team. But keep in mind, even as a person who's not in love with the gacha, you still get the currency by playing the game, and you can still go pull things, and you're going to end up pulling good units. So I don't think you'll ever be in a situation where you just can't clear the content. So those of you, my friends, that don't want to do the gacha, that are just here for Persona because you love Persona and you're coming from maybe the console games, you're fine. Don't have to worry about it. So next up, let me transition into, kind of the gacha fan, and let me talk about the whales. So I personally have nothing against somebody who wants to spend a lot of money to max out every unit, get every duplicate, every weapon, have all the things. I think that's great. You are the ones that are basically keeping these games alive. So I want to, tell you what you're getting for that value, if you will. For you, it comes down to the modes. Let me get out of this palace here, or my palace, whatever it's called, and I'll show you the ones where you have incentive to do more. So if I pop in the metaverse, there's a couple. The first one is going to be SOS, and this is, again, as we reset content cycles, this comes back. I don't know what their timing is going to be on these cycles. Let me get out of this, but effectively you have score rewards, and so there's these tiers here, and you can see like the different rankings and things like that, and ultimately you get more rewards for the higher your ranks are. And if I pop over, I don't think I haven't unlocked it on this content cycle yet, but the short version is the higher rank you are, the more you'll get. That said, after I think rank 6, it's closer to bragging rights than it is like a ton of extra gems or anything. So you notice here, if I go back to rank 4, at least in this version, and they may change this for global, I get 225 gems. This is, what you convert into pull currency. I get some of these wild coins, which you're going to need for the highest level, personas. This is how you get them. Same with this currency over here. And you're going to see, it kind of tiers up. So you got lower rewards for, if you're after 60%, all the way up to 525. And if I keep going through and I get all the way to the top end rank, you're going to notice it's capped at 250. And you get that, I think this was rank 5 or 6. Yeah, rank 5. So once you hit rank 5, which anybody who's just playing the game is probably going to get past rank 5, you're going to have your max gem reward. And then you're really kind of progressing these things over here. And you get nicer frames, things like that, things that are more cosmetic. So again, this is more of your bragging rights. And so yeah, if you're in that top 1% because maybe you've pulled all the characters, you have all the options, and you've duplicated them out, and you've got, obviously max efficiency, and you know how to build a team, that's a super important thing, then yeah, you will progress a little bit faster in getting your top end personas because you're getting more coins. You're going to be able to get rewards slightly faster. But it's not PvP. There is no PvP in this game, at least as of this recording. And so it's not giving you like that advantage to master in lord over everyone else in a PvP game. So there's nothing like that. The other one is down in guild battles. So in guild battles, if I back out here, once you join a guild, and by the way, I'll be creating a guild. So if you want to join, throw it in the comments. I'll see how many people I can get in there. But effectively, you are looking for higher scores. And so being able to have a better team and build those teams is going to let you get higher in the rewards for this, right? So again, but this is also a guild thing. It's not really much that you're getting out of this. So those of you who really want to spend heavily, I think it just means that you're going to get to complete more characters. You're going to not have to wait as long to get them all the way to 80 with, maxed out skills, things like that, because you're going to be buying, packages that include additional materials, things of that nature. And really what you're going to be pushing for is completing the modes and getting the highest scores possible to top those leaderboards. So not much to drive a heavy investment in my personal opinion. So then that brings us to, what about the low to mid spenders? In global, I'll tell you, I'm going to be that low to mid spender. I have a few places I will spend money, like the battle pass or whatever. I'll probably pick up a couple of the cheap packs, and I'll have a separate video for the cash shop guide once it actually hits global and we can see the prices and what they're bundling. But what are you getting for, supporting in that low to mid range? And I'll let you define what you think is mid. But let's say maybe in that, I'm going to put $20 a month kind of range in there. For you, really what it comes down to is you're probably not going to top the leaderboards. I don't think you're joining the whale ranks to, have every option available to you. But I think it opens up a few options. So first of all, you're going to have more gems at your disposal, and gems means more pulling. So if we jump in the shop, I'll show you a couple things, for example. So if I scroll through here, you're going to see a pack that's pretty common with gacha games, and it's a lower cost pack that you buy monthly, but you get quite a large batch of gems and extra, refills, in this case on the coffee. So, this here is what will allow you to ultimately pull more units or weapons, because you've got this kind of trickle in every single day of the metaverse crystals or the metaverse ambers, and that goes on for 30 days. So a lot of people that are in these lower spend categories tend to pick up these, and then they tend to pick up the advanced battle pass, and this game is no different. You've got a couple different tracks. So you've got the free to play one, and you've got this extra bit that you get for, I'm guessing that's probably in the $10 neighborhood. Again, we'll get the prices once the cash shop hits. And so I will, be picking up things like that. And if you're doing the same, where you're getting some of the lower cost bundles, then you do get kind of the freedom to say, you know what, I do want to pull that next character and I want to get their weapon. I want to, get a couple back-to-back characters and their weapons, things of that nature. What it doesn't do is it doesn't let you necessarily go for absolutely every character out there. If I compare it to, say, the whale in the room, then they will be able to sit back and say, you know what, I'm going to get every character. Even if they're going to move to the standard banner, I don't care. I want them at release. I don't want to leave it to chance, and I'm going to get them and possibly even maximize their dupes. If you're in that, I think, low to mid spending place, you're going to still have to make some choices on some units to skip. And I think from my perspective, in most cases, you're still going to want to skip any character that launches that goes to the standard banner. For example, Vino. So if we pull her up, she is a standard character, either one of or the last 4-star, if I'm not mistaken, that had a limited time banner, but then moves to standard. But she is a great unit. She pairs well with a lot of other characters. As much as I want to pair her with Queen, I'm going to wait till I pull her from the standard banner. I'm not going to invest my limited gems into pulling her on a separate banner. And so if you're that low to mid spender, you're going to have to make decisions like this. You'll notice that in my roster on KR, which by the way, I'm free to play on KR because I don't have a way to, pick up the currency or whatever. I don't have some of the more popular newer units that move to standard. And this becomes an issue because the standard banner just gets more and more characters, and so as you get later into the game, your probabilities of pulling a specific one just lessen. It's just the mathematics behind it. And so you're going to have to make real decisions on, do I treat this as a limited character and guarantee that I pick it up because I think it'll be important for my roster, or do I leave it to chance in the standard banner? The other thing you may do is say, you know what, I really do want to pick them up, but I'm going to have to forego their weapon or things like that. So I think that you're going to have quite a bit more options. I think compared to a free-to-play, you're going to end up with a wider roster. I would still tell you that in most cases, I wouldn't go for duplicates. That might be controversial to what others will tell you in the content creation space, and I understand why. There are certain characters that just really do benefit if you get one duplicate. But keep in mind that even though you have a little bit extra currency, if you're going for a 50-50 banner or something like that, you might have to go to pity multiple times to get one duplicate versus getting multiple other characters. So it's a choice that you're going to have to make. The other benefit you're going to get is you're ultimately going to have more materials, because if you're doing things like the battle pass, and I'll show it over here again, look at all these materials on this bottom path here. So again, I'm not paying for anything right now, so I only have the free to play track up top, which everybody's going to get. But on the bottom, it's every single level, it's just better rewards and the higher tier rewards. So look, this is purple versus blue, things like that. And then this will have more coins, so you're going to have a chance to pull more weapons. It has, more pulls, things of that nature. So, check this out. You've got a limited character pull. Obviously, it's not going to guarantee them, but it's, a pull. And it just gives you more, and it gives you more materials. So as you have the option to pull more characters because you inevitably get more gems, you also have more materials to build those characters or the other ones in your roster that you care about. So I think in this game personally, it really does benefit someone to throw a couple dollars. I don't think you need to go crazy and spend $50 a month or anything of that nature. And I think the gap between the mid spender to the person who's going for absolutely everything is a pretty wide gap. I don't think there's really a halfway point in between there. And so in my mind, I think you should make that choice of, if I'm going to spend money, totally fine if you don't want to, but if I'm going to spend money, keep in that low to mid range or go all in. Unless it's a character you just absolutely love and can't live without, I just caution you, because in gacha gaming, it's that gambler's fallacy, right? I'll get him on the next pull. Oh, I can just spend a couple more dollars. Once you break open your wallet, it's a lot easier to keep spending. So just bear that in mind, buyer beware. And what that leaves us with then is the person who is truly free to play, not going to spend a dime. What are you sacrificing? What are you not getting versus someone else? We already covered that you get all the content, all the story, all the things. So you don't have to worry about missing out on the next story batch or anything of that nature. You're going to get that. But, and I'll tell you this just from my own experience being free to play for the time that I've played this on the KR server, you are going to run into certain roadblocks when it comes to materials. Now, something I'll credit the developers with is, as we got closer to the 1-year anniversary, I saw more and more events come out that just gave a lot more resources. And the 1-year anniversary gave an absolute ton of them. So if you ever notice me moving around menus and I've got a whole bunch of like cards or things like that, a lot of that came from the first anniversary or shortly thereafter. Leading into the first anniversary, I'll tell you that I felt a big material crunch. And so if I go into my characters, the ones that are 80 and have like level 80 weapons, you can pretty much guarantee that I did a lot of farming for that. So I spent my stamina on the daily grind to get, level up materials or weapon breakthrough materials or whatever. And keep in mind, I've 100%ed all the palaces up to the newest one, all of mementos. I've done basically every event. And so, I should qualify, since I joined the game, which was, 7-ish months ago. And so knowing all that, if you're free to play, if you're starting at global launch, you're going to get less of the crunch that I had because you're going to have more events than I did. But ultimately, you can't level everybody. I'll tell you that right now, not in the short term. Maybe in the long game, yes, but you are going to want to consider your teams. Who are your favorites? First of all, build your favorites, have some fun. I'm building Joker and Morgana, and there will be people that tell you don't need Morgana. I don't care. I love the character. He's going to be in my roster. So build your favorites first. Then go through and say, okay, well, maybe I have someone I love. Maybe you are a big Queen fan. What team can you build with Queen? Well, with Queen, you're probably going to want Vino. So if you end up pulling Vino on a banner, build her. But you probably don't need to come down here and say, get, Ice Mont. Ice Mont isn't going to do, oh, that's the wrong one, but isn't going to give you anything for that team. And so if you're not building a team for her, here she is over here. If you're not building a team for her, don't just build her to build her. You want to be a bit more restrictive on who you're going to put in your lineup and really think about those team compositions, right? If you need an ice team, who's your ice go-to? If you need a wind team, who's your wind go-to? Or do you fill in the blank with a persona on Wonder? How do you maneuver around those different things? Certain modes are going to require multiple teams. For example, the SOS we were talking about earlier, or the Astro Globe, or again, I don't know what they're going to call this. But in here, you're going to need teams for all of this, and you can only reuse certain characters so many times. So you want to be thoughtful about the teams that you're building, and don't just rush every character and try to get them all to 80 because you're not going to have the materials for it. That's probably going to be your first big crunch. The other big crunch you're going to run into is where the mid spender had to make a couple of extra decisions on who to pull or if they get the weapons. You're really going to have to make those decisions. And so as people release character guides, I'll have some, a lot of other creators will have, plenty of these things. They're going to have recommendations on things like weapons. I'll give you a spoiler to my Joker guide. The Joker weapon, not needed. It's not necessary. It's probably one of the more average 5-star weapons. I'm going to get it because it's Joker. But if you're like, you know what, I don't want to blow all my gems at once, that's where you would skip a weapon. Or in other 5-star cases, there's other characters that will come out that unless you're in love with that character, you should either skip the whole character or at least skip their weapon. And those are things you're gonna have to decide more frequently than someone who's putting in a couple dollars. Now, I'm not telling you to spend money. That's not the point of that sentence. I don't want you to come away from this video feeling bad and saying, hey, Bear said that I've got to spend some money to enjoy the game. Not at all, not at all. Again, I have been free to play on my KR account and I've been in love with this game, enough so that I'm over here creating content for you and giving you pointers on how to, navigate through the game. I wouldn't do that if I didn't have interest in this game and if I wasn't enjoying it as a free to play player. And again, the only reason I'm going to be spending money in the game is A, because I want to. I don't mind spending a little bit of money to support the ongoing, efforts of the game and the development and things like that. And 2, I want to have a little bit more freedom to get a couple extra characters because I think it'll help to give you more guides if I'm actually using the character. It's harder to do when I don't have them. So for me, it also just has that benefit of giving more information to you. If I look at my notes here, I think that's really it for free to play. You get all the modes. You're really just going to come down to having less team variety at that level 80 mark for quite some time to do all the modes. You're not going to topple any leaderboards, most likely. There's probably a couple of you out there that are like amazing gamers that will just think of things that I've never thought of and other people haven't thought of. It always surprises me when that happens, but it happens in every launch of these gacha games. But for the most part, you're not going to be toppling leaderboards, but you're still going to get high enough to get the great rewards. And you're not really going to be missing out on much there either. So don't feel bad if you're free to play. Don't feel pressured to spend money if you want to be free to play. You're not gaining, some crazy PvP advantage for doing so. And if there's characters you really, really want, unless you want every single one of them, you probably have a chance to save for them. If you want all the P5 cast, they're not all coming out on day one at launch. You can get a Joker, save up, and then get Fox later, and then save up and then get Haru and Futaba. Yeah, you might have to skip Yui or some other, new character in between, but you still have a lot of options. You still have a lot of opportunities. In worst case, banners come back. They even have other banners that allow you to pick from basically everyone who's launched up to that point. And so if you have to skip somebody in the short term, they're going to come back eventually. You can save up for them. So I don't think it's a bad place. I think you'll be fine. And ultimately, the generic answer to this is it free to play friendly? Absolutely yes. Tons of options, tons of events, tons of things that they give out. And I even saw that there's going to be a login bonus with the release of this globally that's going to give you even more resources and pulls that'll probably help you jumpstart your account. So go in there, have fun. Just know that if you are free to play, don't just level everyone to 80 just because you have them. Think about your team composition in the long term. And know that you can go in here, enjoy the entire game, the confidants, the palaces, mementos, modes, the whole thing without spending a dime and still having an amazing time. It's what I did in KR, and you'll be fine if you do it on global launch. But that's it. That's my perspective on free to play. Again, it's free to play friendly. I thought about this a lot for a few days. Absolutely free to play friendly, so do not worry. And with that, my friends, I will see you on our next video.